Hello, my name is Ryan Green, and today my guest is Jeremy Corray. Jeremy is the Executive Vice President of Digital Engagement at Coolfire Studios, a content studio in St. Louis that focuses on original programming, commercial, and social video. In his 10 years leading the digital engagement team at Coolfire, he has overseen a variety of award winning projects reimagining video content strategies for legal, healthcare, agricultural, and insurance industries. Before joining Coolfire, Jeremy was a producer for the Voltron Force series, which at the time was the highest rated premiere in Nickelodeon history. Amazing. He is an important part of the advertising community in St. Louis, hosting several industry parties of lore throughout the year and also serving with me on the board of 314 Digital. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
I love being here. Thank you, Ryan, on the last splash. So congratulations on all this. Yes. Those of a certain age know the reference, right?
I'm glad that you do. I think you have to be above the age of 40 to be familiar with the
Yes.
breeders, although
Yes.
Olivia Rodrigo is basically
Yeah.
a copy of Kim
Oh,
Deal for
okay. Hadn't thought about
in
that. That's a
sound.
hot take.
So I
Yeah.
think her parents must have had Columbia House. So
Fair enough. They probably did, in all honesty. Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. We'll chop it up and talk some video.
let's do it. And this week we will be talking about all things video. It is still the most powerful, poignant way for brands to communicate with an audience. The storytelling, the production, video is entertaining, it's emotional, it's personal in a way that just an image or words really can't be. But a lot has changed since the days when a brand could just simply launch a 30-second video ad on TV. Consumers are brands themselves now in many respects, and they expect to have the ability to have a dialogue with a brand. So, from your vantage point, how has your video strategy evolved over the past decade?
Well, I think if we talk about the past decade, we have to go back even further. And I'll get something for you that kind of says it all.
Is it one of those four Emmy Awards that you have behind you?
No, but that was a flex right there. There you go. But it all started with this, right? And the kids that come in the office now go, wow, look at that. The old VHS camera. That's so cool. We have filters now that are on our iPhones that make it look like this. And I say, you obviously haven't worked with this, not throwing shade, but it was the dark ages, right? I mean, this is what I grew up on, VHS to VHS. So how it's changed past a decade is just the accessibility, right? There were walls up, there were gates. You had to have certain technological skill set. You know, we did a high school class where we were editing VHS to VHS, and when my friend Kirby figured out we could put Super Nintendo Street Fighter 2 sound effects into our zombie movies in the backyard and not have the date in the corner, it was amazing. And then I went on to a college TV station that was playing our content to the dorms, you know, and that's how we did ratings, was if you got seen in the cafeteria and who mentioned seeing your show. So this is pre YouTube. This is pre just the distribution side. But in my a little over 10 years at Coolfire, I've seen the strategy chain where everybody's smartened up, right? 10 years ago, I had to convince Build-A-Bear to start a YouTube channel and program for YouTube. That seems crazy now, but just the fact that now folks have come around on the idea of, you know, social video strategy, it's beyond the production. I mean, I grew up making movies for ifilm.com, atomfilms.com, who had ad revenue share, you know, and would be submitting short films across there. And, you know, was number one on YouTube back when you could be number one on YouTube, and there was, you know, the rankings and things because there was, you know, that little content, and now it's a tidal wave. How many billions of minutes are uploaded each minute of video?
I think there's a million videos or minutes of video every minute.
Absolutely. Nothing, no number would surprise me, right? And it just becomes boggling after a while. So it really now the things we were talking about 10 years ago, vertical videos, you know, subcuts, sidecar content, supporting digital. Now, I would say even just that phrase, right? Digital video, which was, you know, a very specific definition 10 years ago, is now everything. We are all digital. All your base are digital to us, right? It's all sort of the same, you know, distribution now. So now I'd say, you know, 10 years ago, they'd be up in the edit suites down here at Coolfire and they would say, where's this going? Oh, is it going on YouTube? Now they know all that stuff up front. So the things we were preaching, and the good news is at Coolfire, we're uniquely positioned to address those. And now we look to what's next beyond that, which we're rallying around kind of a snack bite meal strategy, like I spoke about. So I think, it's everything. The answer is everything has changed. But if I were to put it into maybe two words, it's the accessibility and just the strategy of it all. And now, as you said, this stuff's expected. And what's expected out of a production company, just like journalism and news, and I hear from these folks doing, television news broadcasts, and the things they're making the reporters do. You see the guy, now he's schlepping the tripod, and now they're getting the news cuts, and now they're expected to go, on Facebook Live ahead of time. And like, so the expectations for the amount of deliverables, I'd say, is also a big thing, but we're way ahead of that game.
With the millions of minutes of content uploaded per minute, there's just infinite content now. And because there has been such an increase in content consumption, there just needs to be more content. And because of that, there's still a lot of A plus content, but there's a lot of B and C content too. Everybody fancies themselves as a content creator, an editor, a director. I can remember a couple of years ago going up to what I thought was a pretty fancy club in New York, feeling very out of place, and it just basically was a video production studio, for lack of a better term. Everybody was influencing and had a director and had light, and they were bringing their own lights. I'm like, I thought this was a drinking establishment.
The last thing we went as a camera in the places we went to in the 90s or something, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad there wasn't cameras for a couple of those museum experiences that I had. But when everybody is a content creator and a director and understands post-production and CapCut and captions and all those elements, and the fact that brands have latched onto this, almost enjoying the UGC do-it-yourself feel for commercial campaign work. What aspects of that ethos do you all infuse into your creative? What parts do you see as more the domain of professionals, of the adults in the room, and how does that connect, this do-it-yourself ethos and the expectation that a consumer now has about really understanding behind the lens and understanding what a producer actually even does?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I said to an editor that wanted to do more commercial work recently, and she sent over a reel of sunsets and kind of the beautiful vistas. And she said, well, also I do these TikTok videos and subtitles and strategies. And I was like, stop! I can reach out my hand and grab gorgeous 4K reels of artists who are just unbelievable, but give me someone who understands how to cut a vertical video, the proper pacing, the authenticity, right, of it, and someone who understands that world is so much more valuable building that personal brand, or as we call it, the inside influencers, when we offer this to companies. So we have a unique point of view on this, and obviously that has had to be something we've had to adapt and evolve into, right? So the number one note we were getting even just a couple of years ago is it looks too good. And Coolfire is known for premium projects, right? We're known for slick. That Coolfire finish is something I often reference. But what we found is they can all work together. An example of that is Car Shield. We're doing a road trip series for them called Drive On. We're professional race car driver Sonia with professional comedian and full-time dad Doug go around, and it's not so much a hard commercial. There's the long form series, right? That's our meal, and that thing's going to be anywhere from 8 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. We always get asked how long is the perfect video, and it's as long as it is entertaining. So we'll promote that as the meal around it, right? And so if you think of your whole tapas strategy or your bento box, right, we're also going to shoot some more direct response things while we're there. We're getting more out of the production. We're going to shoot some literally broadcast 30s while we're there that are like direct response, call Car Shield, go to the website, and then we'll get out the phone and we're going to shoot some TikToks, right? And things that look more authentic, and they're truly going to come from the folks who we've hired who are influencers in their own right. So I think Coolfire was early on. I remember our president, David Johnson, hired the brothers Rydell, who were YouTube influencers, to direct. So a lot of those folks went to direct higher budget pieces. And what you find is the campaign begins before the production even begins, with the behind the scenes and getting folks invested, right? And then there's just the bite-sized things where it's like we'll do with this, right? Slicing things up. So you have to meet folks where they are. You have to meet viewers on the way they want to consume that content. So I think everything can work together. And I remember early on, vertical video was a hot topic, probably still is around here and things, but I think every medium has to embrace and there's always going to be that period of a little bit of a hesitancy around, but I say embrace that format. I think the biggest shift too at Coolfire, just business wise, is we're shifting more to getting paid for our strategy, getting paid for our packaging, right? With representation in Los Angeles, we can get to celebrities. Nothing is unheard of. Nothing scares us. So I think the areas that professionals still need to come in, if you've got that, long form, what we would call kind of unscripted or travel series, that's going to be a little harder for a one person job, one person band to do. But the things that are absolutely, have to come across authentic, have to truly be authentic. That's something that, a lot of folks can even work on in-house. So a lot of our time now is we're getting paid to help come up with that strategy and whether or not we shoot it. So we're very careful about what we're good at, what we're not, and leaning into things that we excel at. And I think every business has to, because to your point, there's a lot more video production companies. You and I can grab a camera here and start our video production company like that. But what I think you're seeing is a lot of the consolidation, because folks just keep driving that production budgets, but the expectations are still high. So it's a really interesting time. It's best of worlds, worst of worlds. And having been in this industry now for over 20 years, I've seen the changes in my lifetime. And it's pretty wild, but I'm always optimistic about where it's going. But we can't be afraid of these new technologies, and we have to embrace it. And I'm continually pushing the team to stay on top of this stuff. So very early on, recognizing things like TikTok are a viable platform. And this wasn't just some place for dancing videos, because every platform, they're going to dismiss it at first. YouTube was this thing, these YouTube videos. So staying on top of and knowing where that platform, which kind of content works best for each, which sounds so simple, but I think you often get a lot of brands, in particular, a lot of marketers just kind of check a box, and they're not using the interactivity of these social platforms in the way they should.
I like the bento box metaphor, and I know you guys have used the meal snack.
I probably stole both from somewhere.
Well,
Subconsciously.
You've definitely perfected that that image for me. But
yeah,
that bento box that may even had 4 or 5 different placements on it, may have 30 now. If you're starting to think about a different strategy for the full brand entertainment series versus what you would put on vertical video versus what you put on shorts versus what needs to translate to audio, to unmuted environments, and still being able to have that storytelling experience and have one of the words I use is building an ecosystem.
Yeah, we use that too.
Being able to think through what that core is, what you would call the meal, but then all these other intangibles with it. Where do you, and what the distribution looks like. I think the distribution and the production also have to come together when there's 40 variables.
I'll tell you, Ryan, and sorry to interrupt. We've been fortunate enough to work with a couple brands that have, enough budget for television. And as much as I am a, digital, it's in my title, I still respect and recommend the power of those rabbit ears. Television and just what's coming over it, the biggest rise in devices we've seen since I started here doing promotion, laptops were in the top 3. Now it is smart TVs. TV is just being redefined. It's not going away. It's just redefined. A screenager might say, yeah, it's television. Like, it's okay. This is television. It's okay. It can be. But we're seeing folks, and it makes sense. You might do this at home too. You're just watching YouTube on that Samsung television.
The majority of YouTube impressions now are on smart TVs.
It's crazy.
YouTube is television.
Yeah, YouTube is television. people, obviously there is a tier of YouTube TV, and you see a lot of folks substituting their cable for it. So that's where we feel like we're positioned well to create that more kind of lean back entertainment, and something like Car Shield or something like Brown and Crouppen had the chance to help form BCTV, where we were doing shows like Three Lawyers Eating Sandwiches that had tremendous success on television as well. So I love the kung fu move that I don't see a lot of folks doing, is taking then the best of your digital. And by the way, brand that buys so much TV, there are cheap overnight prices, there's cheap inventory out there, and they need content. So that's my rationale for also investing production dollars, because none of this stuff is cheap, whether you say time or the effort that it takes into it. And if you think it is, go ask the intern down the hall that is trying to edit your anthem video that you had him do for a couple $100. None of this stuff, and so if video is only as valuable as we treat it, and if we continue to race towards the bottom as an industry, and just folks taking jobs just to take jobs and things, we're only going to dilute the value of it, right? It's when did movies become a commodity? When did movies stop being special? And I heard a theory, and I kind of like this, is when Walmart put them into the DVD bin, and just DVDs were $1, right? Whereas you and I maybe had picked up that copy of the Criterion and really made it. This was special. This was I'm old enough to remember VHS price to rent and getting Batman or something, or even The Lion King. So same way with our videos and our video strategy. If we as an industry don't elevate it and respect it, and all sort of agree on like, hey, here's the threshold, we will only be continued, and especially with AI and things coming in, the client expectation will always be just, how do I get it cheaper, faster? So it's a responsibility to that marketplace need, but there's also a responsibility to the industry as a whole. I'm not going to sit here and hide my eyes and pretend like I'm clinging on. The barbarians are at the gate. The AI barbarians are at the gate. They're right there. So how are you using those emerging technologies to meet that demand? We can turn that sword around, right? And the other side of that blade, and produce more faster. In the room next to me, we're able to quickly cut out. And I'm talking about different styles of content that's more. I don't even want to say talking heads. I'll say inside influencer type content, where we're producing someone. And I think that's lost on some of this stuff. No matter what the technology, the phone makes a beautiful image. It really does all come down to storytelling. It comes down to pacing, and it comes down to, producing. So I think Coolfire excels at that polish, and, specifically things like audio and the titles and things that just give it that elevated look that people think, this is quality content. But at the end of the day, I'm not one to judge what production quality is. We arm wrestle around here with what's production quality. I'm sure folks listening to this who are, excellent colorists and things still, but it's only the quality is subjective, right? Yes, there's beautiful images stuff. It's undeniable. But what about a lawyer like Ed Herman talking about mixing cereal is entertaining as hell for 8 minutes? So I've seen it all.
The quality is subjective, but the results are not. The results for a brand are, in some ways, and I know the attribution discussion can go in many different directions, but the results for a brand are actually pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
When you represent a law firm that had a 300% increase in cases, I'm making this up.
Just 30%. I won't. Yeah,
30.
There's transparency right there.
Another interesting tidbit is that individuals are starting to act a lot more like brands on social media, where brands want to act more like individuals. So there's this like odd convergence of influencers wanting to have all these sponsors and have all this gloss, but then the brands want to be more humanized, and they want to have heroes. And I think that's why this idea of the inside influencer is a really powerful one, because they may be initially reluctant to be in front of the camera. I think that humanizes them, makes them really good heroes. It allows you to tell a story, and it allows a lot more authenticity. The modern influencer is not particularly authentic anymore. They're either a carbon copy of the rest of them, or are so transparently trying so hard to talk about their products or whatever, reluctant face on there. They are somebody that's coachable. They're somebody that can be directed. Their vulnerabilities come out in a much more honest way and aren't just
Yeah.
glossed over, and that's what makes
Yeah.
us human. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I like the brands trying to humanize.
Yeah.
I wonder if the individuals maybe just need to stay as individuals as well in this ecosystem.
Yeah, and my advice for folks, whether you're a small business, right? There's someone in your organization that maybe it's you that is the face of the brand, can infect someone with an enthusiasm, and people are drawn to people who are passionate about what they do, that are experts. And I've often heard it's like, just entertain me, educate me, or inspire me, and those are the three reasons why folks share things. So Mosaic is a world's largest fertilizer producer who Kashif Rashid is someone I worked with at Emerson for a while, and he saw talking about video strategy, here on LinkedIn, where we probably are right now, and was really interested in this insider influencer idea. So we took Sherry, who is an incredible advocate for the brand and someone who grew up on a farm, talks to farmers, and in many cases, Mosaic and other agricultures, like, let's break this down, particularly technology, or just like, let's put a face in front of it. So we've launched the Sherry Show, as we call it, but that's been a really successful way to put someone out there. To me, it's just it's scaling and digitizing, if you want to say it grossly, like your sales process. But I think let's take a step back too, and brands have to be comfortable just like solving problems. Like, if I'm sitting there and I'm at my small business analogy earlier, the place to start is like frequently asked questions. Like, what's the one thing that someone is looking for? And YouTube is still such a powerful search engine for this. TikTok is quickly coming on as a place where folks are going for answers. I joke that, like, we don't need to do it all dad anymore, not to stereotype, but like, oh, I'll ask dad. Oh, I'll ask dad. He knows how to fix that. Dad, you've ever replaced, YouTube. Like, I've got all these resources.
I'm a new
at my
dad.
fingers.
Please don't tell me I'm already
I
going
know.
to replace.
Well, in that sense, let's just say they won't have to annoy you as much, and you can just sit there and email them, or I'm sorry, text them back YouTube videos on how to do things. So the knowledge sharing, and then reminding folks that you're here for them. So just kind of being there for folks. And I think there's still a natural tribal, you give me something, I want to give you back something in return. And like you and I have talked about, offline here, I think a lot of brands can learn from finding the fun, right, in it. And I think you and I were giving examples of whether, it's our friends at Liquid Death, or the Dude Wipes or something. Those are brands that speak to me as that midlife crisis dad, which is probably its own persona, right? I kid, but there's just a fun in it.
I'm sure it is a persona that
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe my picture's just there, right there. So we got to get him with this Corvette or something. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and I love that expression of brands trying to be like, because no one's waking up and going like, gee, I wonder what Windex thinks of the Olympics. But I encourage folks to don't get too hung up on the lighting, make sure there's just good sound, and start to create content. If I sat in a room, with Ed Herman of Brown and Grupin, and I would have said that here's what we're going to do, here's the show, and here's what the result of it, I would have been lying that I would have predicted any of this stuff. But I knew Ed was a personality. We started off with a show, Ed versus the Movies, which was totally different than where it ended. But you listened to the audience and you evolved it. And eventually he got to Ed mixing cereal, which I still have people coming up and saying, like, that was truly kind of everybody wants the viral video, but that thing just spread. And now he speaks on circuits about video strategy and has made business alliances. So the only thing not to do is to do nothing at all. But I encourage folks, like when we talked at Midwest Digital Marketing Conference, is truly think of the calendar, truly think of a strategy. And I know a lot of hyphens exist in a lot of our roles, but you've got to take that on, and you've got to be committed to doing a full year of content and measuring that. But you've got to manage expectations internally, because the starting and stopping thing is what's going to kill you. And when you commit to that, you've got to commit to it, as you know, with this podcast and things, because the most valuable resource is time, right? That's the one commodity that we're losing fast, and you have to be worth it. So it's okay to, I digested. I caught this in just little clips. I wasn't able to, dedicate the full 45 minutes. Or anybody wanting to start a podcast, I tell them, do a video cast, strip out the audio here, put that up on YouTube, then, shave out your clips. I mean, there's playbooks out there for it. You know what to do. You just need to do
it. It really isn't that hard. I have a $200 light, one light here. I have a microphone right here. It's like a whole $99 or $300 rig. There's $0 per hair product here. I'm
until you get your sponsor. So but it's all about connecting and having a conversation. And then there's, just effects beyond that you will see by putting good content out into the universe, by being authentic, by truly making it come from a place of heart where you're not selling as much as you are providing answers. And then you'll get to that sale soon enough. Right. And I just think there's so many ways. And I also encourage, folks to think of YouTube used to have their Hero, Hub, and Help playbook. And you can think of that as a traditional marketing funnel. But doing things, hey, here's my big anthem, whatever, channel trailer or something that I'm going to put some production value into, closest thing to a commercial. But then think about what they would call hub content, where it's just, what else is my audience into? Things, answers to questions. I'd even put that down even further, where it's like direct buy, here is a review of it. But, with Amazon continuing to just dominate, a lot of folks, that's, a whole frontier unto itself is the product video, right? That's that last step before adding it to cart. But it's a super exciting time. And I think anyone just with with willpower and, like you said, the barriers to entry have never been lower.
No, they haven't. I mean, I probably spent $500 to be able to start producing stuff.
Yeah, don't say that too loud.
And that's part of this discussion. This is what $500 looks like. It's good enough, but it's not commercial. It's not something that you're going to
doesn't need to be though.
4K for. It's not an entertainment series. It's not strategy. I sent you 5 questions and notes before the beginning of this, right? Like, it's good enough for a one-person business, and it's a great way to start. And I'm glad that I've done it. I'm getting a lot better each time on video 5 or whatever I'm here. But I'm also committed to 100 videos, and that's
that's it.
And that's from Mr. Beast.
It is.
That's who's ranked. That's who's ranked number 1 right now. And people are like, well, how can I go viral? And they're like, have you made his responses? Have you made 100 videos yet?
You won't
know. Like, no. And they're like, come back to me when you do. But when after the 100 videos, then they have went viral because they figured it out. They figured out their own voice. They figured out their vulnerabilities. They figured out all the elements that that make them special. That they understand their audience. They've seen all the comments, right? They've took out the trolls and focused on and they know who their core 1,000 fans are. They've been able to hone that in, and I think you guys have done a special job, in particular, at honing in that voice for people like Ed.
Yeah, that's producing.
In particular, I would say in
sleepy B2B boring industries.
Yeah, lawyers are class action law or personal injury. Lawyers are boring.
Legal is boring. This is. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and obviously we're generalizing there. But like we were talking yesterday, like, what are services? Getting my oil changed is boring. Going to the grocery store, right, is boring. Hence, whatever, Instacart. Like, what are ways you are making and thinking about your consumer, client, customer, ways where you can break that down? So I appreciate that. I think a lot of that comes from, a lot of folks' backgrounds in entertainment here. We've had 19 television shows produced. So we'll come to a Car Shield show with the same talent, same development process as we do if we're making a show for HGTV or a show for Roku that's going to come out this summer. So I think you're seeing a lot of that, and that's what you saw, especially with Brown and Crouppen. Now, it's Ed for sure is the content generation machine and is brilliant, but the way you produce him, the way you edit him, the way it all comes across just was the magic touch there.
5 years ago, was Ed comfortable in front of a camera?
Well, I think Ed would have always found a camera to be comfortable in, and having seen his Raiders of the Lost Ark shot-for-shot remake, I would say Ed was a born performer, and in another life is a Hollywood producer, and may still be. But I think just harnessing that and sharing it into the world, and Ed was unique too, and still is, where he really sits next to the editor and frame by frame and is not afraid to, kill his darlings, is not afraid to find that little moment. But we've taken that and produced things for like Tim Miley out of West Virginia, who saw Ed speak on a panel thanks to the success of the Brown and Crouppen campaign. Now we're doing Tiger Talks series with him. Is Tim Miley Ed Herman? No, he's not. But we position and produce him. And just talking to Tim Miley for 5 minutes, I was like, this guy is going to be the best professor in college I've ever had. Like, we're going to take his knowledge. He's a former politician, representative of West Virginia, and so his show is different than Ed's. But we've really found the pacing of that. We've just launched one where him and his wife are talking about their favorite road trip stops on their motorcycles. So this works for the business in the sense of, he wants more motorcycle cases. He wants to be the law firm in his market for motorcycle cases. They are authentic. They authentically ride. You feel the authenticity and connection. So we've tapped into something that is not talking directly about motorcycle laws, right? Those are other videos. But instead, they're sharing their love and they're sharing places to stop. And by the way, if you ever would need our services, we're here and we are knowledgeable about that. So I think a lot of that, particularly when it comes to things like legal services or, what I'll call longer sales cycle, and I hate to use that word, but things that where people aren't immediately needed. But boy, how many products have you bought off Instagram just from a funny video? There's having come from some of the toy industry, they reverse engineer and think of things like a fish balloon coming in. What is the viral pop that makes you want to buy that toy? So the smart folks have already thought of the video strategy. You look at things like, That 19, which is a YouTube channel based in St. Louis. They were really innovating a lot of that early on product, make your funny rap video. And also we're going to sell, the giant gummy bear. But eventually they get to a point too where the video itself makes more money just due to their huge subscriber base. The video now is the product, not so much the product that they're pushing.
I mean, and if you can get to that place like Amazon does, where they sell more ads than they have ad space that they're buying, it's just amazing, right? The other thing that comes to mind with this discussion is how much a entertaining video content strategy can amplify everything else. How much more effective were Brown and Crouppen's sea of billboard ads when you were able to put BCTV on there and to be able to have that initial hook, so that doesn't just say in an accident, call now, right?
Right. Sea of sameness.
75%, like in that sea of sameness, correct. And that's helpful also with Tiger Law, who is very specific and niche with motorcycles. I know he's the motorcycle guy. I don't have a motorcycle, but I know he's a motorcycle lawyer. So either being able to be really niche or to have that halo effect from something that is breakthrough, something that breaks through the noise, especially in these kind of sleepy, boring industries.
Right.
And that's where I think the largest opportunity is for marketers. Marketers have done a lot of work with CPG to make that as sizzly and interesting
Skittles,
as they can.
Taco Bell,
Yes, all the QSRs, all of that. But what advice would you give to like the CEO or CMO of a brand that is stale, that's gotten boring? Maybe they've had budget restraints. Maybe it's just hard in like financial services or things like that. What advice do you give to them to take your Law Stars legal playbook and apply it to their business?
Well, thank you for the plug. I was just reading about Cracker Barrel, and it's a publicly traded company, and I believe the CEO even came out and said we're not relevant anymore, and our core customer base is getting older. And I would encourage folks like that to kind of find the fun, right? You have to find the things, the reason to get back in on it. As much as Build-A-Bear doing pay your age. I mean, people hadn't probably even thought about Build-A-Bear in decades, and I know it was a mixed bag, but that put them kind of back. So finding a reason, I think folks today, the sheer business of it all should be about find the flex, right? Find a way to make sitting outside a Cracker Barrel in that rocking chair like a funny thing contest. Now you can't manufacture that sort of thing, but I think there's ways, and you see that, right, with waves of them. It's almost like memes, and I don't think you can survive on that forever by any means, right? There's the marketing can't fix, a pipeline that is, out of date as far as just it's hard to fix, the menu options, but those things, that ultimately are going to drive people in. But I think it's a mix of that. And if you find your, Build-A-Bear had Baby Yoda and that blew up, if I'm Cracker Barrel, I would start showing up also in different places of, is there a world where you have a spin-off sub-brand where I can get Cracker Barrel in a food hall? Food is in particularly so, fickle and taste change, and so many folks have such visceral reactions, and we can find so many food options. It feels like every town is a great food town now because we're so empowered by something like Yelp. So I think it's finding the fun and finding a way to stay relevant. To which I'd say, why aren't you still relevant? Why aren't you doing PR things where you've made it into an episode of whatever Parks and Rec? How do you make it reinvent yourself for a younger audience where it's like ironically cool to be at a Cracker Barrel? Those are all things I think marketing can be doing, but that's not going to ultimately fix a Red Lobster or something, or an Applebee's. There has to be business things, but there's ways you can at least reinvent and sort of weather some of that storm. But it's probably going to take a wave to come crashing in to reinvent that. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but you've got to keep up on consumer tastes, right? And they are changing. But I think anything to do, or if you can have somebody doing a selfie somewhere, that's it to a generation, including, Gen Xers like us. Like, if it didn't happen on Instagram, it didn't happen. So I would just encourage them to, really think outside the box as far as what's it going to take to get a flex here. And that's how you start the chatter socially. But that's not everything by any means. I think, and I'll use Build-A-Bear as a great example. They had to think beyond the mall, right? And they ended up in cruise ships and sporting arenas, and that sort of leveled the ship. And now they've turned around and are now an IP company, right? And that's another way, right? To Cracker Barrel, they've done a good job. I think their butters are in stores and things in White Castle, right? You can buy it in the frozen food section. But I think taking those wild swings at something to stay relevant is absolutely. I think Cracker Barrel's one hit, country song away from getting a spike. I wonder what that did for Applebee's.
So we didn't talk about this Cracker Barrel example beforehand,
We didn't.
but I happened to watch a MBA case study on Cracker Barrel a
Oh,
couple of
wow.
months ago. Went back 12 years on their P&L. One of the more consistent companies. I mean, they
Yeah.
have 3% growth. I mean, at the level of inflation every year. So and their like quarterly earnings calls, their CEO is almost prideful on how little they changed. Like they'll say this to the investors. Well, we took one menu item and moved it from row 5 to row 7. That was the big change. So is their angle then about the anti-change? Like, could they make an entertainment series about how consistent they have been in every experience that they've had for the last 40 years, that
Yeah.
nothing has, like, the place is a relic and
Exactly.
it hasn't moved. You
Yeah.
can still even take that marketing angle for
I
something that
agree.
hasn't
Yeah.
moved and make it into just
Yeah.
a new way of looking at the same thing.
Don't try to have a Cracker Barrel, themed vape flavor or something like that. You don't want to drive off your core customers, which is also, a danger there. But so perhaps
Yeah.
it's, taking grandma to Cracker Barrel is cool, right? And to your point, yeah, the throwback, and in a world of keeping up with things, like, you can always count on kind of Cracker Barrel to be there. But I think a lot of times, even just collaborations, I think you've seen McDonald's do a great job of that, where they've reinvented the Happy Meal. I think that was a really smart move to just, they'll have those menu offerings that, you'll come back in for something that's exciting and a little bit of a twist on it. And I think brands like a Cracker Barrel and Build-A-Bear, we call, those transgenerational brands, can lean in on that nostalgia, right? Because now you have parents who, that's where they went. And I think there's something special for that. We did a show for Energizer, My Life as a 90s Sitcom, a couple years ago. That was a scripted 90s sitcom before even all these other kind of 90s sitcoms, but it paid homage to, like, the era of the Energizer Bunny, which came up.
Yeah.
So I think nostalgia and Tim Miley talks about a commercial that people still talk about where he's morphing into a tiger, and it's his, special effects is as envisioned in your head. It is a true morph to like, it could not be more 90s. And I'd love to run that inside a TV, like 4x3, because I think folks do remember that stuff. So we're living in an age where, folks like us and even older have been advertised to their whole life. And that does start to become part of nostalgia in itself. So
The nostalgia for monoculture is pretty funny to witness. Mad Men Don Draper got it right. I mean, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Amazing how much that video really lends itself to.
it does. The sensory.
I'm not saying that like Volkswagen couldn't put their lemon, commercial back in print and tap into nostalgia necessarily, but video does an amazing job. Because nostalgia is a complicated emotion. I think you do
Right.
have to have some storytelling element to it for it to be most effective.
If you're right. And the sense of smell, I think, is an underrated nostalgia. I think I read somewhere that is the thing that triggers our brain. So if there aren't, Cracker Barrel candles where I can get my chicken dumplings and a candle and have that next to my office, then I don't want to live in this country. No, there are so many things. I mean, in all seriousness, and I think it has to come from both, all the media thing. They have to set up a recipe that a happy accident will occur, but they also have to make, the smart business decision. So relevancy is a hard thing, but I also think it's a balance of you can't chase the shiny new, you can't quirk your way out of something business wise. And, as a quote unquote marketer, though I still think we're just all filmmakers who are applying our craft to, something that we're hired to do on behalf. We're making films for companies, an industrial filmmaker. I think there's ways to experiment, and you've got this awesome 24/7 focus group. You don't have to wait to see how this will land on television. You can find out in 24 hours. And the good news is the internet will tell you very quickly.
And we'll tell you very directly as well.
Absolutely.
One last question. What's
Yeah.
something that you've changed your mind about since you started in marketing?
That any of this was easy? No, I think there is a perception among filmmakers and folks who produced animated series. I've gone to HBO, U.S. Comedy Arts. I've had things on Comedy Central, right? And there's definitely I think a lot of these filmmakers coming out like, oh, that's slumming. If you're doing like paid work and things, but I'll tell you what, I still say if you're folks, you've got to be able to sell yourself in a room. I talk to so many interns and things who want to be directors, and I was on a filmmaking reality show too and envisioned directing, but like if you can get paid for your craft and being creative, you're winning. You are in the top percentage of your class. So I would encourage folks to the idea of selling out or something. It's like making the client happy, and whatever that is. And I see a lot of nasal gazing towards just the race to be just the most beautiful drone shot and this and the racing. And yeah, there's a side of that, there's a commercial thing, but I get much more excited about reading a comment on, a video I've created or something where someone's, loving it or they've shared it out to a community. And ultimately just thinking about what makes your client happy. So I think folks need to remember that while it's a creative business, ultimately in the end of the day, you are hired to do that. And if you don't want to be, then just do your own thing and be your own creator, and that's fine. Then you can be the client, but like always remembering that at the end of the day, this is something where it's a privilege to work in this industry. It's a privilege to get paid for it. So there's always folks, I think, and then the idea of giving back, right? And so you wake up and suddenly you are the executive vice president of digital engagement, and you start to go, oh, I was 23 trying to break in, and you see those same folks. So I always try to give back on behalf of the folks that gave me a break. And you're stronger than you think, you're smarter than you think, saying yes to situations and figuring it out. But 90% of it is showing up, being consistent, and giving the most shits, as I'll say. Like truly care and go to bat, go to war for your client. And in my experience, you're not going to win them all. There's always going to be a reason. All I do in this industry is make friends, like sincere friends. And then if something comes up and we can work together and I can help them, I will. There's no hard selling, just hard fun.
One last question again, then.
One last question. Post credits.
Yeah. What you were talking about friendship? Why do you think we became friends?
Well, because you're smart, Ryan, and you also will come over and watch pay-per-views. And I
Pay-per-view
mean,
wrestling, I want to
yes,
mention.
exactly. Yes, yes. Scripted sports only for me, and
Yeah.
the knuckle dragging, yeah, UFC stuff. But well, I think we're in similar stages and things. But I find something in all of my friends, and I think it's both a unique commonality among all of them, and I think in particular I'll do these dudes day outs, which sound masculine things, but I think we as men, if I can get kumbaya and things, and I'm certainly not some whatever masculinity things because
You're not a red pill guy and by any
no, I
stretch of
mean
the
my
imagination.
goodness, I'm a girl dad, and but I also believe that in qualities that would be considered feminine that I'm comfortable and embrace, like hugging a guy and middle-aged men or whatever you want to call us, the whatever middle age is these days, um, aren't great at nurturing friendships, right? Whether that, no matter what, and I'm speaking, just genderless, and I'm just saying the masculine side of it. So I love to get people in a room. I love to gather smart people, and I love to see when connections happen. So we'll just sample, and we'll just do new things. And I think a lot of it breaks down stereotypes or what's this like, and oh, we're going to go to this farm over here, and then I just love seeing all my dudes get together, and because I just see a lot of commonalities of where we are in life, where we are as parents, where we are in our own career journeys and things. So, and it's been an awesome ride, and I'm always trying to give back. I'm always trying to, promote diversity and things in the industry, which we still, have a long way to go with. But just kind of recognizing where we're at and wearing the heart on the sleeve, so that I can look back and say like, oh yeah, I, gave back, did some fun stuff. Maybe help some businesses out, but ultimately your legacy is the people you leave behind. So I can feel good about that, and the connections and the authentic connections and things that beyond the business. If we worked on something and something didn't work out, so I think that's you're a perfect example of just becoming friends, and then there's work to be done over here. Yeah, great, all right, bring it on, and I'm gonna show you how we're gonna go to bat for you, and I'm gonna make sure that job gets complete, so you keep coming back for more. And hey, that's good for me, that's good for you, and but there's never any, things are so cyclical in this business too, right? There's going to be something wrong. Oh, well, they're back again. So I encourage folks to not get too. There's plenty of work to go around. There's no need to, everybody's elbowing each other. But I think we have to have solidarity, and just, video cannot be the DVDs in the Walmart bin. You have to really treat it right.
I think middle-aged men do need to talk a little bit more about our feelings or our
Yeah,
states in life. I mean, cohort with the highest suicide rate. There's a lot of
it's
loneliness in the
true.
world, period.
It's
There's
great.
not a lot of
Yeah,
fun amongst
right. Scary
all genders and
times.
all
Yeah.
ages
We're
right
hearing
now.
about
And
everything now. Yeah.
the response that we have with social and cell phone and how we're going to raise our boys and girls in this new
Yeah.
environment with AI coming and
Right.
the probability of doom that AI could bring. I just listened to a podcast on that. That'll scare the shit out of you as a parent. So there's a lot that I think male friendships need to something we need to feel a little bit more comfortable about. We need to have good female friendships with us as well. So it's not necessarily a gender thing, but it's really goes underneath the surface a lot, and for men in particular, that need to unearth a little bit.
Yeah, and not to step in it because I know my swim lane, and I've had some hard lessons and things. And that, it's whatever you identify with, and I think that's what I'm about. Is like, and I know Ed Herman talks about this too. Like, you can't label him. Like people are many more shades than that, and the more I learn about whatever different cultures, or having bilingual kids, it's like you, even within that tribe, there are different layers into that, and you can't just, I know it sounds cliche, that one brush, oh, okay, this is whatever, Hispanics over index on mobile or something like there's layers within that.
Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for all your time today. Thanks for your friendship and
Oh, wow, thank you, Ryan.
for all of the
Can we?
The great moments, and there's your Panasonic
Yeah, I'm
VHS.
sorry. Could we do that again? I didn't hit the record button. We're gonna have to start from the top.
Yes, you can, of course.
Okay, great. I'm running out of tape here, even though I put it on SVP. So here you go. And ready, Ryan, and action. I hope this mic picks it all up.
Jeremy, thank you for everything. Thank you for the. I thought maybe you actually did have it on. Shit.
No, yeah, that'd be good.
How much does it cost to get a 3M VHS?
I don't know.
tape?
I've got my back catalog, so don't you worry about me. I've from the '90s. I still got some. So, but yeah, I looked up a Hi8 cassette player that I had sitting around. It's like $6,000 or something. I should have held on to all that stuff, like I did my Nintendo.
And it's hard to know which cultural relics are going to be valuable.
The answer's all of
years and
them.
which ones are trash. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, appreciate
Thank
it,
you,
Ryan.
Jeremy.
Until the next time, sir.
Thank you for being on The Last Splash. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.